Shit hits the fan planning. How to prepare for every disaster. In this video, I will cover the topic of planning for any kind of disaster, so be prepared and not let it catch you by surprise. With that said, I strongly recommend that you visit our website and read the full article, where I also mention specific items that will help your preparedness and survival. The world is a crazy place and it's only getting crazier. Every day it seems like there's a new disaster to worry about. Whether it's a hurricane, a tornado, wildfire, or a pandemic, it's highly important to be prepared for anything. A shit hits the fan plan is a plan for how to survive when shit hits the fan. It's a plan for what to do when everything goes wrong and you're left to fend for yourself. There are a lot of different ways to plan for an SHTF scenario. Some people stockpile supplies, others learn strength sufficiency skills, and still others just hope for the best. No matter what your approach is, having a plan will keep you alive. If you don't have a plan, now is the time to make one. If you wait until a disaster strikes, it will be too late. So let's get started on planning right now. Prepare for any type of disaster. There are a lot of different disasters you could potentially face, so it's important to plan for as many as possible. Here are some of the most common types of disasters to plan for. Natural disasters. This could include anything from hurricanes and tornadoes to earthquakes and wildfires. Weather-related disasters are on the rise in the last 50 years, according to World Meteorological Organization. Terrorist attacks. While hopefully rare, a terrorist attack can be a major shock to any community. Civil unrest. When society undergoes extreme changes and your city faces riots and looting, thorough preparation is a must. Criminal activity. If you're the victim of a crime wave, it can have a major impact on your physical and emotional well-being. War. In war, millions of people can find themselves torn from their homes. Make an assessment of the potential disaster. A significant step in preparing for any disaster is to assess the situation. This means taking a look at the potential risks and hazards that could affect you and your family. What could happen? Think about the various risks and hazards that could affect your area. This could include natural disasters like hurricanes or floods, man-made disasters like a fire or chemical spill, or even something as simple as a power outage. What are the chances of it happening? Not all risks are created equal. Some risks are more likely to occur than others. What are the consequences? Even if the chances of a disaster happening are low, the consequences can be severe. What can you do to reduce the chances of it happening? There are often steps you can take to reduce the chances of a disaster occurring. For example, if you live in an area that is prone to floods, you can buy flood insurance or build a flood wall. What can you do to reduce the consequences? Even if you can't prevent a disaster from happening, you can often reduce the consequences. For example, if you have a fire in your home, having working smoke detectors can help give you and your family time to escape. Create a communication plan. Creating a communication plan is one of the most important things you can do to be prepared for any emergency. Here are the fundamental guidelines. Designate a point of contact. In any emergency situation, having a designated point of contact, or POC, is crucial. This person will be responsible for coordinating communication to all members of your group. Decide on a communication method. There are many different communication methods available, so it's important to decide which one will work best for your group. Some options include email, text messaging, instant messaging, social media, or good old-fashioned phone calls. Develop a schedule. It's important to have a schedule for communication in order to keep everyone on the same page. This schedule should include when and how often you will communicate. Everyone should have a copy of this schedule on them at all times. Test your plan. Once you have a communication plan in place, it's important to test it to make sure it works. This can be done by simulating an emergency situation and seeing how well your plan holds up. Learn from your mistakes and make adjustments until everything works smoothly. Have a bug-out bag within your reach. A bug-out bag is a portable kit that contains everything you need to survive in case of an emergency or disaster. There are many different options on what should go in a bug-out bag, but there are some essential items that everyone should include. Water. You should have at least 1 gallon of water per person per day. Food. Non-perishable food items that will last for at least 3 days. First aid kit. Get a first aid kit that covers common injuries and maladies. flashlight and extra batteries. Go for lithium batteries. These last longer in any weather. Radio. A battery-operated or hand-cranked radio is a necessity, as you will need to be able to stay informed in case of an emergency. Clothing and bedding. Extra clothes and blankets will be necessary in case of bad weather or if you have to evacuate your home. Tools. A basic toolkit should include a knife, a multi-tool, a book of matches, and a whistle. Firearm and ammunition. If you are comfortable with guns, consider keeping a firearm and ammunition in your bug-out bag. Cash. In emergency, ATMs may not be working and credit card companies may not be able to process transactions. Decide on leaving or staying. When it comes to SHTF planning, you need to decide whether to stay or go. This decision can be difficult and it really depends on the situation. If you have a family, you need to consider their safety. If you have a business, you need to consider the impact of the disaster on your ability to continue operating. If you're in a high-risk area, you may need to evacuate, but if you're in a lower-risk area, you may be able to weather the storm. There are a few things you need to consider when making this decision. First, you need to assess the risk. Is this a disaster that could potentially harm you or your family? If the answer is yes, then you need to decide whether you can evacuate or not. If you can't evacuate, then you need to make a plan to protect yourself and your family. Second, you need to consider the impact of a disaster. Would it disrupt your life? Will it damage your property? Will it make it difficult for you to continue living in your current situation? If the answer is yes, you should consider a permanent or temporary relocation. Third, you need to consider the resources you have available. Do you have a place to go to? Do you have the supplies you need? Do you have the money to evacuate? If the answer is no, then you must decide whether you can tough it out or not. Lastly, you need to consider your personal preferences. Do you want to stay and fight, or do you want to go and start over? Not everyone has the strength for a continuous struggle. On the other hand, many of us are attached to our homes, neighborhoods, and countries. Locate or make a shelter. A large part of being prepared for any disaster is having a secure shelter. This could be a bug-out location that you have prepared in advance, or simply a safe place to get through the ordeal. In either case, there are some key things to keep in mind when it comes to securing your shelter. 1. You need to ensure that your shelter is strong enough to withstand the elements. If you are in an area that is prone to hurricanes, tornadoes, or earthquakes, you need to make sure your shelter can withstand these forces. This requires having a sturdy foundation and walls, as well as a strong roof. 2. Your shelter has to be well insulated. This will help to keep you warm in the winter and cool in the summer. 3. You need to make sure your shelter has plenty of ventilation. This is essential for two reasons. It will help to prevent any buildup of carbon dioxide, and also will help to circulate air and keep the shelter from feeling stuffy. 4. Your shelter must have a good water supply. This means having a way to purify water, as well as an option to store enough water for everyone in your shelter. 5. Make sure that your shelter can be defended against intruders. This could mean having a security system or simply installing a sturdy door and locks. Store your supplies. There are several easily accessible places where you can store your supplies for a SHTF scenario. Your home is probably the most obvious option, and it can work well if you have a basement or other storage area that is out of the way and not too visible. Just make sure that your supplies are well organized so that you can find everything you need quickly in an emergency. Rented storage unit. This can be a good option if you don't have a lot of space at home or if you want to keep your supplies more hidden from view. Friend or family member's home. This is a good option if you trust the person and they have enough space to store your things. Your car. This can be a good option if you don't have a lot of space at home or if you travel often and want to have your supplies with you at all times. The bug-out bag. This is probably the best option for those who want to be prepared for any situation, as it allows you to easily grab your bag and go if necessary. Just make sure that your bag is packed with all the essentials such as food, water, clothing, shelter, first aid, etc., so that you're prepared for anything. Estimate the shelf life of your supplies. In addition to storing your supplies, you need to estimate how long your supplies will last. By taking the time to plan ahead, you can ensure that your supplies will last as long as you need them. Consider the type of disaster you're preparing for. If you're preparing for a short-term disaster, such as a power outage, your supplies will likely not need to last very long. If you're preparing for a longer-term disaster, such as an earthquake or hurricane, then you have to make sure your supplies will last for an extended period of time. Another factor to consider is how many people you are planning for. If you are only planning for yourself, you will not need nearly as much food and water as if you were planning for a family of 4. Additionally, if you have young children or elderly family members, they may have special needs that require more food or water than average. Finally, it is important to consider the shelf life of your supplies. Non-perishable items such as canned goods and dried foods can be stored for years, while perishable items such as fresh fruits and vegetables can only last a few days without refrigeration. Plan an evacuation route. When SHTF, you can't simply walk out of the house and drive away. A solid evacuation plan is necessary. Here are some things to keep in mind when making an evacuation plan. Know your area. Familiarize yourself with the layout of your home, workplace, and community. This will help you know the best routes to take if you need to evacuate. Have a designated meeting place. In the event that you get separated from your family or friends, have a designated meeting place where everyone can regroup. Have a multiple evacuation routes. Plan out several different ways to evacuate your home or workplace in case one route is blocked or inaccessible. Practice your plan regularly. Make sure everyone in your household knows the evacuation plan and practice it regularly so that everyone is familiar with the steps they need to take in an emergency situation. Keep your evacuation vehicle ready. Remember that a quick evacuation may require a vehicle. Keep your car in constant ready-to-go mode. Check the oil level and add more if necessary. Make sure there is enough coolant in the radiator. Check the tire pressure and inflate if needed. Keep an air compressor and a spare tire in the trunk. Inspect the brakes and make sure they are in good condition. Fill up the gas tank so you don't run out of fuel midway for your evacuation. Top up your windshield washer fluid. Verify that all lights, headlights, taillights, blinkers are working properly. Check the battery. Healthy battery is key to starting your car. If your battery is more than 3 years old or shows signs of corrosion, it may be time for a replacement. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed our video, please like it and subscribe to support our channel. For the full article and more information about off-grid living, survival, camping, and much more, please visit our site and enjoy our articles on these and other topics. Have an amazing day.